All right, I have started the recording on the Apple Watch, and I'm feeling very bougie right now.
I can't believe you still wear a watch.
I love watches.
Yeah?
I'm not into like the super expensive. Like
You don't have
Rolex.
like blingy bands and cool things like that, because you can get a lot of accessories for the Apple Watch, right? They can get it as blingy as you want it to be.
I went neutral black leather because that's kind of my look. I'm the default character creation screen with the black shirt and bald head.
I did the retro reflective one. It's supposedly if you run with it, headlights will shine it.
So you both have Apple Watches.
Yeah,
we do.
All right. And how long have you been in this Apple Watch mode? Since it came out, did you jump on quickly?
No. I waited about 8 iterations, and it was 2-factor authentication that caused me to want to do it. In my job, I have to 2-factor authenticate.
So you need another device.
Well, so I do a little bit of IT, and I do a little bit of research. And in the IT capacity for what I do, I'm setting up computers, I'm working on other people's machines. My phone may be on my desk, and I may be in another office. And so if I have just a quick mechanism for 2-factor authentication, it saves me a lot of time.
I gotcha.
Yeah, it was very utilitarian for me.
I had no reason to have one, and Apple just created a reason.
Yeah, of course.
Because taking my phone out of my pocket is a lot of work now.
Just go ahead and get the chip right in your brain.
Might as well.
My eyesight gets poorer every day. So, trying to see a watch, that would have to be impossible. So that's what I'm thinking.
The new Apple eyesight, which is coming out this year, they downgraded your version, and that way you're going to want the new thing.
Right. Exactly.
You are listening to The Soapbox. I'm Paul.
And I'm Eric.
This all started out with a list. What's that all about?
So I've compiled a list over the years of things that just bother, things that grind my gears. And I shared that list with you.
And I thought, you know what? That would make interesting conversation. Sometimes I'm going to want to agree with you, and it's just going to be something we talk about. Other times, though, I'm going to want to steel man the opposite position, because I think that's just interesting conversation.
Yeah, and keep in mind, I'm always right, but Paul's just a really good debater.
Hey. I'm very excited about having a special guest in the room. And I'm going to preface it by saying that I have a little bit of a fanboy feeling.
I remember when we met, that happened back then.
It happens every time.
Yeah, you're like, what? You're that guy?
Yeah. So I used to, circa 98, 99, 2000, 2001, you were a part of my daily commute when it was Freakdaddy and Sticky in the morning.
Oh, yeah, way back in the day.
And I remember the moment that Z103 changed hands.
Oh, yeah.
And they played that annoying construction music for
my good
3
Lord.
solid days.
Yeah.
And I was devastated. I was sitting in my car. I was at the intersection leaving Fayette Mall, approaching Target. And I turned on my radio, and I was
You knew exactly. You can remember exactly where you were.
Yeah, so you are.
It's like a September 11th. Who cares about
where he was on September 11th?
Yeah, when did the Challenger explode? I don't know, but I know when Freakdaddy and Sticky left the
that's
air.
hilarious.
So welcome, Leo Freakdaddy Brown.
Yeah.
Super excited to have you here.
And then we re-met again because we were neighbors. We met in the park over at Gardenside.
And that was a cool moment as well. Yeah. And so for a brief time, I was like, oh, yeah, Leo, he's my neighbor. No big deal. we're bros. We hang out all the time.
Yeah, that's right.
So glad to have you here.
Thank you, dude. Yeah, this is awesome.
And I was a Bob and Tom guy, so.
Oh, were you? We won't talk about that.
No.
Actually, I was on the Bob and Tom show as a board op.
Really?
After that incident, when all that went down, then they immediately brought me back to Double Q for a while, and I ran the Bob and Tom show. So I did the local breaks in between their national stuff. So I did that for a little while right after, before I started doing the night show, which was the House of Rock, which I did at Double Q back in the day.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I got a Bob and Tom connection. That's cool.
Okay, well, we'll allow it then. I was like, don't embarrass me in front of my friends, Eric.
Do you still listen to Bob and Tom?
I don't. Actually, funny enough, this is one of the things I wanted to put on the list someday. But Chris and I commute. My wife and I commute to campus every day. And no radio, it's conversation.
Oh,
it's a total. If I'm in the car by myself, I'm either now it's streaming or whatever.
Sure.
But yeah, it's just pretty silent. I know some people have the radio on quiet in the background.
Well, it's good that you talk to your wife.
Yeah.
Most guys don't do that after a certain time.
That's right.
How long have you been married?
I'm going to get in trouble for this one. 21 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you still talk to each other.
We still talk to each other.
That's impressive. You should do a whole podcast about this. You and she. Yeah. How do you do that? Yeah.
I'm out of work. I'll see you guys later. This is really good. So I'm sweating so much. I ran it back and forth here on campus to get our camera situation set up.
You guys have got an obstacle course out here too.
A little bit, being middle of downtown, it's
tough to get around.
Tumultuous at times.
I didn't expect stairs. Wasn't prepared for that. I didn't know I was going to have to get a workout.
We never warned people about stairs ahead of time, or we'd never get anybody on the show.
You didn't stretch, I noticed. So
talking about the tumultuous nature of radio.
Oh, good Lord, right? Good timing.
You left a radio thing, you went to another radio thing. You did that for a long time. But you've recently switched gears again.
Yeah.
Can you talk to me about what you're doing now?
Yeah, I'm trying this again, and I'm going to say trying it again, but this one's totally new. But I've toyed with streaming technology since it became a thing. Like as soon as it was a thing, I started streaming. And that was back in the early 2000s when I did the first kind of foray into the streaming world, and discovered that that's at the time it was just another option, right? Here's a broadcast signal that most people know. Here's a stream, and at that particular time it was because I was with a Catholic radio station. I think you may remember that. So I managed a Catholic radio station for 12 years. And we barely had a signal. Like you couldn't listen to it at first, right? Yeah. Like in the Lexington area, it barely was receivable because it had a very low power signal. It was on the other side of Winchester near the Mountain Parkway exit is where the tower was.
As I recall, it was fighting with another station too.
It was always, because we had, so there's a thing in radio, not to get deep in the weeds on this thing, but there's, a clear channel signal, which is allowed a particular amount of wattage going 24/7 on an AM frequency, which means at night, that's why you pick up all these stations from across the world, because it's got that clear channel signal allowed. We were competing with a 1380 out of Saskatchewan, Canada.
Those dang Canadians.
So it would bleed. That Canadian channel would bleed onto us all the time. So I thought, well, let's just stream this thing out there, so at least we have an option. So that's when I kind of got familiar with streaming technology. So that's a long time that I've been doing this. Then I got the crazy idea in about 2012, and we started looking at trying to tech this thing out. And at the time, my ideas were so far ahead of the curve when it came to technology, we couldn't really get the wheels on it and keep them on. But what I was trying to develop was an app-based streaming platform that would geolocate on your phone, right? Because I can remember where I was the first time I opened my flip phone, my StarTech flip phone, and saw that it had a GPS signal that knew where I was, right? Yes. And I'm like, whoa.
That was an amazing time. I actually worked for AT&T Singular Wireless before that. And seeing that technology, first it was a puck outside of the phone. And you had to Bluetooth connect it to the phone.
Right.
And then all of a sudden they started sticking it in the devices. And that was a game changer.
Yeah, because as soon as I saw that, I didn't think, oh, well, I'll never be lost again. I thought, this knows where I am. I can market with this.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I was just happy I could finally find my way from point A to point B. The odometer of my car was like way lower on newer cars.
Yeah, get directions.
So I was the guy that had the USB GPS puck plugged into a laptop in my car with a navigation software running, completely offline.
So now you tell people not to text and drive.
Seriously, there's a trip we took to North Carolina where I'm sitting with a laptop burning hot in my lap because we've been running on battery for an hour and a half, and it's telling me to turn left and turn.
And you
right.
did that just to travel?
It was I forget where we're going, but I was like, instead of using maps, let's just try this thing.
You were just a tech geek. You just decided to be an early adapter.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Interesting.
Nice. So you invented iHeartRadio.
Well, what's crazy is, and interesting you should say that, because iHeart had been around, but all iHeart was doing at the time, they were streaming terrestrial signals, right? So broadcast stations across the country would come into this app. You could go into the app, and at the time, I guess maybe they still do, I don't know, they would stream competition. It didn't matter. It did not have to be it. Yeah. Clear Channel was the company, the parent company that owned the iHeartRadio app. And then, of course, they became iHeartRadio because of the success of the app. But initially, any station that signed up to the iHeart platform, you could stream it. So that's all it was. It was just a big server list of signals that you could attach onto and listen to that locally wherever you happen to be remotely from that particular signal. It was a cool idea.
From a marketing standpoint, then, you said that it didn't matter if they were streaming competition because they got the ad buy either way, right?
Exactly. They were just looking for numbers. So that's where iHeart's model came in. Mine was different because I wanted to geolocate a signal, right, on that phone, on that device that knew where you were, that would deliver local ad content to you.
Nice.
Right? And no one was doing that. I promise you, no one was doing that. Because I talked to developers literally across the globe, and every time I talked to a developer, they were like, well, that's an awesome idea. We've never thought about doing that. Huh. Finally, in desperation, because I was trying to find somebody that would build, I felt like I was Henry Ford at the time, right? I'm like, I got this Model T. I just got to get an assembly line, and we'll be fine. So I thought I had a great idea, and I just needed to find people to build it. So I talked to everybody, finally got I had the contacts with iHeart. And I thought, well, I can pitch this a little bit. I didn't have an NDA. I didn't give them full disclosure of everything. It wasn't long after I had the conversation. they were doing it, they were doing it. So live and learn. But I mean, it's one of those things. It's like, the patents that have come into the patent office within seconds of each other at times. There's always that race to try to get something going. And this was all intellectual property anyway. There was nothing I could do with it. It really wasn't a machine that did this certain thing. It was just a way of taking what was already out there, developed, and just putting it into a way to make it work, right? Yeah. So they beat me to it.
You at least get to say that you're the Nikola Tesla, the unrecognized inventor.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, the Al Gore, whichever, however you want to look at it.
It's just another inconvenient truth, isn't it?
That's right. Exactly.
That reminds me a little bit of, I had a similar brilliant, I thought, idea that turned into a real thing. But it was a few years later. It was Prox. And the idea was that you would get your phone would bing with an advertisement when you drive by a business.
Yeah.
So I mean, the idea was, I was thinking, how do you get access to the GPS when the app's not running? And this was a whole thing with iOS where you had background.
Did you spend $500,000 trying to put it together?
I did not. I spent half an afternoon writing down ideas.
Yeah.
So
I get a little bit further down the line.
Yeah,
it was a lot more painful. Mine was a lot more painful.
That is bad.
Yeah.
But so this is all leading to
what I'm doing now.
What you're doing now.
Yeah, RadioKY.LIVE. And what I love about this is, the technology is caught up now that I am not in this constant state of trying to find. And to take a step back to those days, we had not only iOS, not only Android, with at the time about 5 different operating systems. Nothing was even remotely congruent.
Similar,
on the Android platform. Samsung had their own, and
Windows,
Motorola had their own. And we had a Windows phone. And we had a Windows phone.
Yeah. And
so
BlackBerry.
All of these different platforms that every time I tried to develop something that would be ubiquitous across it, we would find that there was a problem somewhere. So it just became, it got so insane, I finally abandoned it and quit. And we went with a podcast platform, interestingly enough, is what we ended up doing. And that, to this day, is still going. It's called Breadbox Media. And that's what I was trying to build back then. And I was trying to white label it so I could sell it to other people because it was such a cool idea. Everybody loved it, but we couldn't get the tech going. But anyway, now, fast forward, that tech is ubiquitous. Everybody understands it. It's been built. It's been done. It's been tried. It's proven. So all we have to do is do good programming, right?
Yeah.
So I had the crazy idea, what if we stream Kentucky artists exclusively? Nice. And not worry about the format? Because that's the thing about corporate radio, is it's always formatted, right? It's formatted to a listener, supposedly, who only listens to one genre. I don't know about y'all, but I listen to everything, right? I've got up, and I know I'm a musician and I'm a music guy and I'm a radio guy, but I literally listen. There is no genre of music that I'm like, I hate that Bavarian polka stuff, I mean, I'll get out there and dance, dance a jig to it if I'm, in the mood. But I thought this is a way to at least honor our state, honor those who are out there doing this stuff, and some who've done it for decades. As I say, from Bill Monroe to Jack Harlow, right? And everything in between.
Take a shot.
They may be coming. Oh, is that what you guys normally do?
Since we can't avoid them, we lean into it.
I was going to say, I thought that they may have found me.
They won't climb the steps.
Possibilities, but we're tucked away pretty good. We've got a good spot here.
But the RadioKY.LIVE is that, right? It's a way to honor all of this Kentucky music. And my goodness, it's been so fun researching this, right? Because I'm like, oh, wow, those guys are from Kentucky. Oh, but here's somebody else that I didn't even realize had a Kentucky connection. And the other thing that we're doing, in some cases, like we've had incredibly successful session players or tour players or people who support these artists who have built careers around, for instance, Brooks and Dunn with Charlie Crow. There's an example that, we play some of the live stuff that he's playing on because he was a Lexington guy and played with those guys forever. So that's something we've been able to do as well. But then it's just this wide variety because, Midnight Star started in Frankfort at K-State University.
Really?
Yeah. And then Tyler Childers is from Kentucky, right? So you're going to hear the strangest mix of music that you're ever going to hear. But I've been listening to it nonstop since we put all of this together. And I love it because I'm introducing myself to music that I didn't even think about, because as we've researched this and discovered, these are all Kentucky musicians. And then all of these amazing songs that are out there. And in some cases, very deep cuts that you would never have heard before. And it's fun. It's been really cool.
That's awesome. I did a couple of semesters DJ over at WRFL, and you had the box that you had to play.
Right.
And there were so many minutes of that you had to do. But then you had that little 20 minutes on the hour where it was yours.
Yeah.
You could make it your own.
Oh, cool.
And that was so fun.
Yeah.
It was so fun to dig through, the dust-covered stuff that, nobody was listening to, that, somebody sent on.
How long's RFL been going on now?
Oh, gosh. 50 years or more.
Is it really?
It's a long time.
I know it's been out there a long time. And the cool thing is that it's been breaking rules that entire time as well.
Oh, yeah.
And I love that about RFL because they're not a corporate radio station. They don't have to play by those rules. And
you get some students that just don't care.
Oh, yeah.
You talk about formatting, and their hours were formatted. So you'd have, our hour was metal.
Right. And
just because, we were rebellious college kids, we'd always end our show with Japanese pop. So we would play Puffy Amiyumi, a group that did the song for Teen Titans.
Oh, yeah.
And we're like, all right, you metalheads, you know how we're going to end this. It's like,
that's great.
It's perfect.
Awesome. So there's got to be a lot of challenges to getting this off the ground, right?
Yeah.
What's the biggest challenge for you right now?
Well, I got to get revenue on this at some point, and that is that's always a challenge anytime you're in startup mode, because there's what advertisers typically want to see are, what are the numbers? What's in it for me? What's it going to do? And the thing that I'm doing, quite honestly, and of all people to emulate, but I've studied this world for decades. Rush Limbaugh had the best business model that anybody has ever had when he launched the EIB network.
Piss people off, was it?
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah. Piss them off and get a big audience. Yeah. Exactly. Now, he went to people early on before he even had a network, and he said, I'm going to have a national network. I'm going to do it. I need support on this, because this is true even to this day. If you've got a syndicated show, you're not going to get that syndicated show syndicated and across the country without advertising support, right? You've got to have that sponsorship income, because early on, you don't have the numbers to prove that you can charge the big bucks for your advertising, right? So he went to a handful of, well, I don't know how many he actually approached, but he ended up with a handful of support. And with that early support, he promised them that as long as they consistently stayed with him, he would never raise their advertising rates.
Oh, fantastic.
Right? Yeah.
So you buy in early, you got
buy in early, you're locked in.
Sort of like owning real estate.
Exactly.
Stock. Yeah, stock.
Yeah. So that ended up like Snapple, I think, was one of his early advertisers. He built that company with them because they were with him from the beginning. And eventually all of his advertisers bowed out, not because they weren't getting success. They knew that he could succeed much more without them taking up that advertising buy that was now 100 times more valuable than it was when they initially made the deal, right? So that's what I'm doing. I'm doing exactly that. So I'm going out there trying to find people who believe in what I'm doing, because I don't believe there's a better way to honor a musician than by listening to their music, as a musician myself. And I believe there are individuals in this community that will say, that's a really cool idea. We support that. We respect that. And we'll be a part of that. And eventually we will get to the point where I don't have to drive a bus anymore, because I drive a bus for Fayette County to make extra money. I was doing that even when I was with the corporate radio station, because you can't really make money on corporate radio either. So this model will eventually, God willing, get me to the point where I can free myself up to really focus on it, and then do some really cool promotions, get the logoed vehicle, get out to festivals, do all the cool stuff, do the podcast in the van, all the things that I'm dreaming about right now. That will become a reality once we get the advertising support going. But yeah, that's a challenge. It's a big one.
Do you pay for the content to play, or are people just want you to play it?
No. So when it comes to the content, we pay licensing, streaming,
royalties.
There are licensing agencies that control of that, ASCAP, BMI, CSAC, all of that stuff. Yeah. So we have to do that, and that's unfortunately, that's part of the package now. So you can pay a monthly price for your streaming. It includes all of that in the package, plus the software to do what we're doing, right?
Gotcha.
Nice.
So we're paying for it in that respect, and out of pocket right now. But then when it comes to unsigned artists or anything that is unlicensed, we wouldn't have to pay for that necessarily, but we have to pay for the other stuff, so it is what it is. But I want as many submissions as possible. I want Kentucky artists to submit so we can get their stuff on the stream, because I want to promote the daylights out of this and get them all recognized for what they're doing as well. And the other thing I've been doing is reaching back to the vaults of some of the stuff that when I did local shows on the broadcast radio station, Z103, for example, I had the local show Starlight Lounge on a Sunday night.
I remember that one.
Yeah. And we had all kinds of great local artists on. So I'm bringing those guys back and putting those on the stream as well. So it's really cool.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So are you, I assume you're targeting local businesses, local advertisers. Is there a specific genre, or is it wide open?
No, as I've been thinking about this, I think there's going to be, and I'm seeing it already, because I just got a post from, and I knew I was going to draw a blank when it came out of my mouth. It's a shop down on, it's not Clay City. What's the,
Claysmill?
No, not Claysmill. I'll think about it. No, not good Lord.
That's why we got the pen and papers.
Where's Proud Mary Barbecue?
Clay's Ferry.
Clay's Ferry. Yeah. Did you say Clay's Ferry already? Did somebody say that?
Okay, yeah.
Okay, Clay's Ferry Customs.
We're going through all the Clays.
Clay's Ferry Custom. I'm going to give them a shout out because they posted unsolicited on their Facebook page, we're listening to RadioKY.LIVE. And if you're not, you'll thank us later, and showed the playlist, and it's all genres, all Kentucky all the time. Even use my tagline, all Kentucky all the time, which is awesome, right?
Let's use our tiny bit of clout. Our friends over at family-owned business. Madison's Nana listens to our show.
Oh, that's awesome.
Which we've joked about you guys being unofficial sponsors. We don't need sponsorship for this. But Leo Freakdaddy Brown does.
You're awesome.
You guys should connect for
That's
sure.
That's great. That's cool.
And they never make our sandwich wrong.
Wow.
No, Madison does a great job, Dana. We're sorry we trash talked that one time.
We did kind of get yelled at earlier. She said her grandmother listened to it.
Oh, yeah. You got to watch out. Yeah. You never know who's going to listen. But back to what I was saying on this, I think there's going to be a convergence, right? It's not a conversion. It's a convergence, right? So I don't have to convert people to this. Mm-hmm. People appreciate the fact that we're doing Kentucky artists and focusing exclusively on that, and that convergence will come. So I've been very lucky, if you want to call it lucky, if you want to call it graced, if you want to call it blessed, whatever terminology you want to use. When I do something of this nature that's cool like that, then people come around and kind of focus on it. It goes back to what we did at Z103 back in the day. We had such a different platform, right? That morning show was like nothing else that's ever existed. And it was quirky, it was weird, it was goofy, it was crazy. And we had a convergence on that, right? We didn't have to go out and knock on doors. People came to us. They just showed up. They wouldn't just...
You made something good.
Yeah.
Yeah, the old, if you build it, they will come.
Yeah. So, and I've had that experience a few times. So, and I feel that now more than ever. I mean, it's crazy just since we pushed this out, what I've seen as far as the response is concerned. I mean, people are messaging me, people are texting me, and then, like I say, mentioning me in a post. I mean, that's great. I mean, I couldn't ask for more, so it's really cool what's beginning to happen. So that convergence is beginning, and this, I mean, we're officially out of the gate as of yesterday at record time here, right? So
Absolutely.
It's pretty cool.
And for those listening, this is going to post a week from recording. Today's April 2nd.
Right.
Maybe there's a little doubt that what you were doing was an April Fool's joke. Right?
I did kind of laugh when I saw that launch yesterday. I was like, I wonder if that's like.
Well, I know some of the classic rock listeners wished it was an April Fool's joke, because they're dealing with breaking in another show. And what I say about that is radio, especially broadcast corporate radio, it's always going to change. They have to change with the tide. They've got to be nimble enough to, you live and die by ratings, and that's such a fickle environment, and it's such a weird world anyway. And I really never got to the point of building the type of show that I could do anyway. We never got to that point. Resources are limited these days. I don't care what the broadcast facility is. There are companies that are boarding up radio stations right now that were broadcasting for years, literally decades, and they are dark. Those signals don't exist anymore on your dial because the revenues have disappeared. Unfortunately, as I like to say, broadcast radio is the new newspaper. But they haven't seen it. Like I say, I started streaming in the early 2000s because it was an option. And I'm like, why don't we put some investment into this and really make it good and make it even, at the time, it was better than our broadcast signal because you could listen to it 24/7 and get it anywhere. So I've been working in this world now for however long it's been, 25 years is how long or since the early 2000s. And it's, it's part of what I've done. Unfortunately, the broadcast world hasn't necessarily seen the stream as a companion. They've seen it as competition, and that's fine. It is competition. Yeah, I'm going out there and unfortunately competing against the guys that used to be my family, but it's kind of the way things work.
Well, the family that wasn't always loyal. So, they would just sit at the kids' table sometimes. I say, you know what? Give it to them. Yeah. Because you can be Walmart or you can be Kmart,
That's true. Yeah. Do you envision anything other than music on the programs?
Well, so what's cool about this is the sky's the limit. So yeah, I'm curating product when it comes to everything. So anything like what you guys are doing, podcasts, any kind of video content, any sort of feature program, I want to curate that. We're not going to put that on the stream because the stream is kind of turn it on and check it out. I don't want to have anything that interrupts that. Our advertising even will be a part of the music. It's not going to be a long break where you've got all these advertising announcements. It's going to sound more NPR-like, if you will, and incorporate it into everything. It's going to be really cool the way all of that flows. So you could listen, get the message, get the connection, get the appreciation that this advertiser is supporting this, and you'll get that message very loud and clear, but it will not interrupt the flow of what we're doing.
It feels to me a little bit like your intention here is to make sure that your ad partners understand that they're not the interruption.
Right.
They are part of the product.
They are part of the product,
and
yes.
They're a partnership.
Absolutely.
Which makes that easier to listen to and,
yes.
and I think a little bit easier to swallow.
Well, and the cool thing is, and I discovered this with the Catholic world, is that, when somebody believes in what you're doing and that advertiser believes in what you're doing and the listener believes in what you're doing, it's this beautiful world of support that comes from that. I've had literally for 12 years at the Catholic station, we never made a dent in ratings. Right, there was never a blip on the radar screen when it came to anything in the ratings world.
Because the only Catholic growth is through having more babies. So.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. So, but the advertising dollar and just increased. 2009. I'll go back to that crazy 2008, 2009 economy. We sold the daylights out of the Catholic station in those years because I refused to participate with the recession, and I told my sales team that. And secondly, we had such a loyal listener and we could prove it, and we proved it time and time again, that they realized that all they had to do was come in and support us, and they were going to see the results. Firehouse Subs, I love to tell the story. They were an early advertiser with me when they started the franchise business in Lexington. And what I would do with my programming at the time, with my advertising programming at the time, is I would say, hey, we're going to do something unique to us, right? I want this relationship. I want you to know it's coming from us. If you get something out of it, we'll see, if this offer, whatever we do, works by not doing it anywhere else. So they did a Kids Eat Free Sunday. It went gangbusters in their local shops, to the point at the time, and I don't know if they're still doing it, they spread it out nationwide because it was so successful, and they knew that they could make money off the adult meals enough.
And get some brand loyalty. And
get brand loyalty, and they would be back and back and back. Because, that's the other thing is, I've spent more money in my sales training than I ever did in my college education in public relations is what it was. So my continued education since then. And, it's very analytical, the approach that I take. And I look at gross profit margins and I say, what can we work with here? And how can we do this a little bit to put the word out there that's going to get you the best return? And, that's what I did, like I say, for 12 years with the Catholic station, to the point that we had advertisers that were with me from the beginning that stayed all the way to the end because they kept getting results on a station with no ratings, right?
Yeah.
So it's going to happen again. It's going to happen again.
Quality over quantity, and maybe the goal is both.
Yeah.
But you start with quality, and I think the quantity.
But I also think that, there's a point, if we want to talk about my soapbox,
let's pivot here.
Yeah.
Let's what is your soapbox? What
it really comes down to that the greed that became corporate radio, to the point that we lost all sense of quality, right? We really lost a sense of quality. And what we certainly lost was any sense of nomenclature or any sense of local culture, because that was a huge part of radio for me growing up and listening to the stations that I listened to, whether it was my local swap and shop, right, in Shelbyville, Kentucky, where you could find out about a guy that had a set of tires. If you had a couple of stereo speakers, he was willing to make a swap. It was the Facebook marketplace before there was social media, and that was so much a part of the local culture, and it really connected people in a way that was so unique to that community. From that to
text the national keyword, and you're competing with all of America.
Right. And of course, then what happened in 1996 was the Clinton administration repealed the Communications Act, and that allowed these big conglomerate ownership structures to come into play across the country, to the point that the little guys, the mom and pops that did just fine, right? They ran a fine operation, just kind of what I'm talking about, off a little bit of ad revenue that paid their bills and kept them keeping the lights on and their bills paid. They didn't need millions of dollars. They could run an operation successfully, get everybody paid, pay their talent enough to live on, right? And everybody was happy. And then the corporate guys come in, they start buying up all the little guys. They start homogenizing the product to the point that it's unlistenable. The word
that was on the tip of my tongue there. Because nowadays, for me, I love the rock stations. I still listen to 103.3. I also listen to 97.7. It's the same. It's the same format. It's the same song.
Of course.
Sometimes they're playing them at the same time. And then those terrible sounders that they do. Or, hey Alexa, blah blah. And it's What are we doing with this?
Oh, I know. Yeah.
And I know some algorithm has determined that this is going to maximize your listenership or your ad revenue, but it's awful.
There is a law of reciprocity in the universe, right? And what comes around goes around. It will. And what you plant, you will reap, right? And that's that happened to the record companies. I mean, look what happened with streaming, with the Napster fiasco, to everything that happened, where now many of the record companies that were flourishing at one time are gone because they don't have the revenues, and independent artists now without a label can build a career, build a successful career without anything that, the big loans that you would get from the record company, that was something that you had to pay back. And if you didn't in a certain amount of time, you'd be dropped and you'd become a tax write-off.
That corporate structure wants to try to squeeze blood from a stone.
Right.
And you can only do that so much before people want to participate in some other alternative.
We've seen the record companies take a dive. The same is happening now with the big radio companies, because they have ruined the localism and the connection to a local community, which is, if you understand social responsibility and what broadcast initially was about and why it was regulated the way it was regulated is because it was a public service. Even if it was a commercial entity, you still had a responsibility to the local community. And that's how I was trained. I was in my broadcast curriculum at a time when it was still that way, right, in the 80s. And that became instilled in me. I mean, it's still a part of who I am and why I believe that the RadioKY.LIVE product is that. We're serving this local community through the artists in this local community. And when I say local community, it's a statewide community, but that's local, hyper-local compared to corporate radio.
Yeah, right? Absolutely, yeah. And I think there's a sense of pride that comes with that, too. I mean, I'm originally from Canada, but I have grown up in Lexington. I've been here since I was 6 years old. So
wow.
All core memories formed here. And if something's stamped Kentucky Proud, or if somebody's at Liquor Barn and they're saying, hey, this is a local bourbon and, I made it.
Yeah, sure.
I know the mash bill. I feel a connection to that I wouldn't feel with the big national chain brand. So
it's what I'm feeling when I'm listening to this stream right now, right? Because I literally am driving around with it in my car and I'm not listening to broadcaster radio. and I'm just enjoying it, as crazy as it is, because it's crazy. I mean, you're going to hear a mix of music that would never work. Let's put it this way.
So like a far more local WRFL because it's all Kentucky.
Exactly. Yeah.
So for the folks that listen to WRFL, not to steal an audience or whatever, but the ones that like local, that like a big mix, is there an app? Is it a website? How do they listen?
So we're running this through Live 365, which is the platform I'm using to stream. So Live 365 has its own app, and you just go to there and look for RadioKY.LIVE, and it shows right up. It's got all the metadata information. It's got an image of the artist. It's got who it is, and we're also going to start getting. I'm on the air in a recorded fashion now. Of course, I'm going to. As we curate more of this product, I'm going to dig a little bit and try to give a little bit of history on these artists so you know exactly why we're playing them and what's going on and where they're from and what it's all about. But right now, literally everything from bluegrass to rap to, a harder rock product. I mean, it's all over the map, but the one commonality is it is a Kentucky artist that's on the air, or on the stream, I guess I should say.
Are there rules to it? Do you have to the whole band from Kentucky, or
no?
You just get some Kentucky tie?
Yeah,
right?
yeah, Kentucky tie. And so far, what we're doing is it's the artist itself or themselves, not necessarily a writer, because if we got into that world, then we would have a huge swath of potential artists that have recorded Kentucky writers. My goodness, that list is massive. So, we're looking for the musician, right? And the other cool thing, and this is in its infancy, but I've already leaked this out, we're going to try to do this sometime next school year, is work with local high school programs to give them a little boost. I was blessed in high school. I had a guy from the NBC Orchestra hang out with us for months. His name was Arnie Lawrence. He was a sax player. I played in jazz band and orchestra at the time. And he just worked with us literally every day on what it meant to play with soul and feel and groove and all the stuff that he just instilled in us.
And that was very impactful. I've heard you talk about how high school formed you as a musician.
More so than and I did a bunch in college. I was, aside from I was into broadcasting and then public relations is ultimately what I graduated with that degree. But I was in every ensemble and I did music theater and the whole thing at that time. But high school was such an impressionable time because I knew who the NBC Orchestra was, right? And granted, I couldn't Google this guy and check out his whole resume, but I knew that he was legit. And I respected the fact so much that my conductor director, Ken Birdwell, who ran the program at the time, was cool enough to bring these pros in. Tommy Newsom came in and hung out with us, and Dizzy Gillespie. I mean, it was just crazy,
and this
right?
Is Shelbyville?
Shelbyville, Shelby County, Kentucky. Yes.
It makes me think a little bit of my kids went to Jesse Clark and Lafayette, are both going, and the music program in those two schools because they feed each other.
Oh, Lafayette's always been amazing.
It's amazing. Yeah. I mean, they will bring in people from all over and do like they did a really interesting like a Ukrainian song for one of their
and brought an artist in residence in to hang out.
No, not that far. But they got a unique piece of music that was written kind of for what was happening at the time in Ukraine, and just really they put a lot of thought into it. It's a really good program. So my kids are getting exposure to that, because I'm a musician too, but I never did anything in high school or any formal training. Just my brother played guitar, so I had to play bass.
Yeah. Well, so hopefully by fall, we're going to have this formalized to where we can actually, it's going to be a competition. We're going to have a way to grant this to the winning program. And, it'll be a statewide competition. It'll be out there with however we're going to grant it. All I know is it's going to feature a high school program, exactly what we're giving them, whether it will be some monetary ideally amount. It could be a potential artist in residence that's going to come in and hang out like Arnie did with us. But we're going to do something really cool. And I don't know exactly how it's going to take shape, but I just know that is so deeply part of what I want to make this. It's going to happen some way or another.
That's awesome. We're getting close to our time here. I do want to ask if an artist is listening or if somebody knows an artist, how do they get them in touch with you?
Yeah, the best way is just to email right now. Our site is still under construction, and we've been working with pieces and parts on that. But it's just RadioKY.LIVE at gmail.com. So pretty simple, RadioKY.LIVE at gmail.com.
Fantastic. And then I guess the advertisers that might be listening.
Same thing. You can always hit me up on my Facebook page. Maybe by the time this is produced and out there, I will have a social media platform. Right now I don't. It's all me, Leo Freakdaddy Brown. I also have a Freakdaddy page. You could find me at either one of those and connect with me there. It's the easiest way to connect. But there will be a RadioKY.LIVE social media presence soon. It's just not there yet.
We know how that goes.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And like I say, I've had this planned, but I was going to wait until at least I stopped driving the bus for summer, right? So I'd have time to focus on it. And, as radio works,
timeline got accelerated a little bit.
We push it up a few months.
Well, that's awesome. Well, Leo, thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, man, thank you.
Awesome.
Glad you guys are doing this. Yeah, it's awesome.
I can say with certainty, when I get back to my desk, I'm going to be loading it
Stream
up.
it
That'll be my listening at the office.
Awesome.
Love it. Yeah,
thank
thanks
you
for
guys.
doing it.
You're welcome.
Thanks for listening to The Soapbox. Eric, how can people find us?
Well, conveniently, we put everything on our Linktree site. You can go to Linktree, search SoapBox Lex, and you'll find all of our socials there, plus ways to reach us, ways to engage, and some of our original content, so you can see some of the other stuff that we do.